Hey guys, welcome back. Coming up next is the live startup show. Why Switzerland is the prime startup location, right? So here on stage, a fireside chat between Nicolas Burer, Managing Director Digitalswitzerland, and Cédric, Bollag, founder at Global Techbox. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome everybody. It's a big pleasure to be here. Before we get into this, a brief introduction about myself. I host a weekly startup show online on various social media channels. That's actually what brought me here. And the interesting thing is usually when I speak to the people before we start the recording, I tell them, just imagine there are 100 people in front of you listening to you. But for me, that's a first-time experience because I usually only see the camera in front of me. So I'm very excited to be here today. During the startup show, what my goal is actually I give entrepreneurs, CEOs and founders of startups a platform to express what they're doing, but also a little bit of the person behind it. And what we realized is that most interesting is the startup show for investors. And I asked them, what is actually the key thing that you're looking for when you are investing in early stage startups? And what they said, what is most important to them is the personal background of the people. And that's also the first question that I always ask on the startup show, and that's Nicolas, that's where you come in, is maybe give us a brief background about your personal life before you actually came into Digital Switzerland.
Thank you, Cédric. Hi, everyone. So I'm Nicolas Burer from Digital Switzerland. I'm the managing director since 1.5 years. Previously, and I'm still a startupper, I founded Movu. You maybe know that moving platform, which has been acquired last year from Bollag. I'm still the chairman for the next 3 years. That's my background. I'm passionate entrepreneurs, investors, and managing director of Digital Switzerland.
I used Movo yesterday. It was very cool.
Really good.
So, the first question is very more specific on Digital Switzerland. Everybody who maybe in this room does not know yet what Digital Switzerland is all about, maybe let's give them a brief background so we get all on the same page.
Sure. Digital Switzerland has been created almost 3 years ago. We are an association and we have a clear mission to make Switzerland a leading digital innovation hub worldwide. So we really want to position Switzerland on the map. If you look at the tech environment worldwide, you first think about Silicon Valley, about Israel, maybe about China, about India, about Berlin, of course, and London and Paris. And the people forget about Switzerland. We have many assets and we have a clear mission within 5 to 10 years, is a long run, to be also part of the best places and hubs in the world. This is our ambition.
Very nice. I mean, very excited also, I'm, live here, grew up here in Switzerland, so I'm happy to see that. Maybe you can also give us some background. Who is exactly behind Digital Switzerland? You see a lot of logos on the website. One of the recent things you did is the Digital Day, where you saw a vast amount of corporates behind it. Who is behind Digital Switzerland?
Sure. So Mark Warder, the CEO of Ringe, founded Digital Switzerland 3 years ago. We now have about 100 members, many corporates. We get to be financed with corporates. That's the way to go. On the other side, we have many projects also for startups, for SMEs, for the population, because at the end of the journey, you don't want only the corporates or the startups to be successful. If you want to have a hub who is worldwide well positioned, you need the SMEs and you need to take the population with you. So that's why we have many projects without going now into details for all sectors. We want the entire economy, startups, SME, corporates, and the population to go along the journey of the fourth revolution.
I mean, you mentioned this positioning Switzerland on a global level. I think specifically Switzerland was very lucky to be in the financial sector over the last 50 years. But is there anything that you would say that's how we would like Switzerland to be known for on a global scale?
In my opinion, we're such a small place, such a small country. We have to focus on 3 to 5 topics. That's the way to go. As we are well known for watches, for bankings, and for 2 or 3 others, that's the same way to go. We cannot do everything. We cannot be good at IoT and AI and blockchain and so on and everything. We have to find our 3 to 5 topics where we will be top 3, top 5 in the world in the next 5 years. That's really the way to go.
Well, then the question is, which topics are these?
Yes, that's a good question. No one knows. Actually, I think so many things are going on in Switzerland right now, like here today and many other events. blockchain, of course, and many others. I think we have to try everywhere. But in the next 2 to 3 years, we will find 3 to 5 where we'll have a huge takeoff and be able to be number 1, 2, or 3 in the world. If you ask me for one, the hype right now is for sure blockchain. In Zug, Crypto Valley is a huge hype. Hopefully it's not just a hype, but it will really grow in the next 5 years.
When you look at, let's say, all of these Swiss entrepreneurs that you're visiting and meeting across your professional endeavors here with Digital Switzerland, is there any key strength that you would say, like, this is what Swiss entrepreneurs are strong at?
Definitely. I'm also traveling since a couple of months much more in other countries to get inspired, to see what's going on about the people and everything. And I see the first one is we have the perfection for the product. So when typically as a Swiss entrepreneurs, maybe a difference with the German ones, in Germany, in Berlin, the rocket style, you launch a product before you really have it ready and you see what's going on, which is also not bad. In Switzerland, first, we really put it to perfection, maybe a bit too far. But I think the perfection for the product is an asset of a Swiss entrepreneurs. The second one is definitely our tech orientation. If you look at Swiss startups, we are really tech oriented. So we have many tech people, we think about the tech, the way we process in the company. We are not just hiring people, like to process everything in the company, customer care or whatever. We first focus on the tech. We try to solve issues with tech solutions. And I think it's a huge asset recognized by many VC all around the world. So our perfection for the product and our tech orientation.
Now we are here at a student-organized event, which is very impressive, when you see all of these people coming from the industry to actually mingle around here. But is there anything specific that you would say to us students that are now studying either at the ETH or the University of St. Gallen, that would say, like, yeah, take this leap of faith and start something on your own? What is, let's say, this thing that is still missing, that the students decide to go more into the corporate world versus starting something on their own?
I've seen a statistic about the high scale, I think 2 or 3 years ago, that only 4% of the high school students will start a company on their own after the bachelor or the master's. So that's really low. If you look at Israel, it's maybe 25%, which is very high. So I think it's a lot about the mindset, We need to repeat to the people, go ahead, try it and fail. Myself, before Movo, I've been working for Joyce, maybe you know that. We failed. So I've been part of a bankruptcy process and I've seen every month, how the boat is sinking, which is a pain process. After that, I'm very happy I've been there. I've learned a lot and that's all I can do is really about the mindset, about the courage, and go ahead, try, fail, and try again. Then you will be successful.
Yeah, well, but people then would reply to you saying, like, well, I'm concerned about the income. Failing is one thing, but if you don't have something to live off from, specifically as a student, anyways, life is not so simple all the time. Is there anything that you would say, like, about the financials, let's say the first couple of years of a new company?
Okay, yes, that's an important point. First of all, that's also my private experience. You need to be financially, let's say, very flexible or having enough liquidity somewhere. I know so many friends and myself 10 years ago, I was in a kind of tricky situation with my first trial for a startups and you cannot work properly. So it's a good question. If you don't have money at all, you don't have an income, my experience showed then you will be in a stressful situations and you don't focus on the job anymore and you look for a part-time jobs or whatever. And that's the beginning of the end. So that's a good point. Financial conditions need somewhere to be there, a minimum, otherwise you will have troubles. And about the salary, guys, no question about it. For the next 3 to 4 years, you will have a low salary. Maybe not very low, but for sure a lower salary than if you go to McKinsey or UBS. So that's the point. But you have the shares and you have an upside.
Is there anything, let's say, from the Digital Switzerland initiative where you say we specifically support students who say, like, yeah, we want to make sure that the students think at least of a possibility of entrepreneurship right out of university?
Now, to be honest, we don't do that yet because there are already many organizations doing that. Startup Weekend, Start Summit, Venture Lab is doing many things for students, InnoSwiss. So there are many activities going on for students. Of course, we can always do more, but we don't want like to repeat or compete against current organizations. So we don't do that yet. We do rather for the next generation, the 6 to 19. We have many projects, all for startups who are really already has been started, but not for students yet.
Sure. So again, during my startup show, usually I have several segments within my show. The second is usually called The Audience Asks, where before every show I ask on social media what questions people would like to ask these entrepreneurs. So obviously, Nicolas, I did that also before today, and I asked people what they would like to know from you. And the first question actually comes from Damien Hamilton Wood. He is working for a living startup, also a former Googler. And he asked the following question. Is Digital Switzerland aiming for similar goals of this third industrial revolution?
I'm not sure I really understand the question, to be honest, but I think we have a clear mission, which is, look ahead in 10 years, AI will be there and blockchain, and we won't drive our cars anymore, that's for sure, and many other changes going ahead. And what we aim is, at the end of the day, it's all about jobs. As soon as you have many jobs, innovation brings jobs, a good economy brings a good society, low unemployment, etc. So all we want is to have the same amount of jobs and even more innovation, even more successful companies. So if to answer the question, Switzerland has always been very good in all revolutions. The first, the second, and the third one. We want to repeat the stories, that's correct. We should not forget, the first revolution took 70 years to go all over the world. So everything was very slow, no mobile, no internet, nothing. 70 years, can you imagine? This revolution right now takes 3-4 years. For every disruptive model, snapshot, 50 million users, 3 years, even less. So it's very disruptive and it's very global, which might be dangerous if you are not at the peak of innovation. And we have to be there.
Well, we are there. When you look at the World Economic Forum statistics, we're usually number 1 or number 2, right up there with Israel and the US. So that's good. The second question that came from a good friend of mine who recently moved from Israel to Zug to be more into the crypto space, and he asked the following. How do the different industries compare in terms of size and number of startups in Switzerland? So when you look at the different fintechs, medtechs, life science.
We're also working with partners about a real innovation map or innovation finder of Switzerland. There is no real number so far. I think there are about 2,000 startups in Switzerland split over many different industries. So fintech and blockchain and medtech and life science, we're also very good in life science and biotech, many different. Again, if I have to give you one which is really growing really quickly so far is the blockchain. The crypto, the blockchain industry is growing very, very quickly. I know many people in Zug, and they have requests every day between 3 to 10 startups from abroad, not from Switzerland, from abroad. Hey, you would like to come to Zug. How can we do that? So it's a hype. So this one, I would say, is ahead. From the rest, there are many other industries moving quite quickly, but this one is really big chance for Switzerland. We should not forget Silicon Valley took about 50 years to be as big as today. It's not something for 10 years. So, and I think the blockchain one started maybe 2 years ago. We're only ahead of a big story.
Yeah. And the last question in this segment will be from Jan Luca, who, I'm not sure if he's here, but he was the president last year for the Start Summit, so he organized it last year. And he wanted to know if you could paint an ideal picture of Digital Switzerland by 2025, what would it look like?
Maybe we don't need Digital Switzerland anymore because we are so successful as a country, That's my objective. We don't need such an association anymore, to be honest. We should not forget, on the innovation rankings, we're always number 1. On the talent ranking from INSEAD and ADECO, published in January, we are for the 5th time in a row number 1 on the talent one. So it seems everything is fine, but it's not. If you look at the IND ranking digital competitiveness index, which is more about the power of execution, we are number 8, and on the digital readiness, So really, how can we execute? We are number 13. So it's not really bad, but we are not number 1 anymore. And I think that's it's Switzerland. We are still very strong with corporates, and corporates, of course, they influence the innovation ranking a lot. Number of patents and whatever, always in comparison with our population. But when you really look at our power of execution, doing the next Spotify, for example, or the next Zalando, today I think we are not there yet. We have a lot to do.
Sure, I see that also, but I see a great potential here in Switzerland, especially with the colleagues I study at, as well as at the University of St. Gallen, but also people I met at ETH. Now, during the third part, during my interviews, what I do is a quick fire Q&A. So I ask you a short question, you have to answer as quick as possible, and always add the question why. So just giving the answer is not enough, you also have to kind of justify a little bit, okay? If you have to describe the Swiss startup ecosystem in one word, what would it be and why?
Deep tech. In 10 years, the people all over the world will know Switzerland for our deep tech success and innovation. So that's really the way we have to go. We are not good in really commercial business. I think we go for quality, for perfection, and for our deep technology.
Second question, what's your favorite city to found a company and why?
My answer is bad, sorry, Switzerland. I'm Digitalswitzerland, and I truly believe there is not a better city than the others. Switzerland is fragmented and is decentralized. So Geneva might be good for this one, St. Gallen for the other one, or Zug, or Zurich, or Lugano for fashion. So, sorry, there is no one city. It's the entire country who is interesting. Sure. And depending on the business model, you might go to another city.
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes you have tax issues in certain cities with the double taxation, but overall I agree. What's your favorite Swiss startup? Movo is not allowed. That would be.
I cannot give you this answer. No, I cannot give you an answer. Joker? Do I have a joker? First of all, I'm invested in some startups, or it would be not fair also to mention them or not others. And I truly believe we don't have our Spotify yet. We don't have Spotify. 2.5 billion raised money is huge. And it's from Sweden. Sweden is like Switzerland. And we don't have it yet because I will give this name. So we don't have this company yet. I wait for this one. I truly believe we now have a nice growth in many good startups, in many different cities and industries, maybe 50 startups. And I hope in the next years we'll have 5 to 10 of them who are ready to become big success, big unicorns, whatever.
I mean, unicorns, we don't have so many yet. I think overall it's one, if I remember correctly. So when you look at the startup, what's more important to you, tech or business?
Clearly both. Clearly both. I know too many tech guys, 4 tech guys, smart guys, 10 times smarter than I, and they fail. Because they don't have the sales, they don't have the marketing, they are doing big mistakes in the business, they are not able to raise money. And I also know many business case, great sales guys, and they completely neglect the technology. They have a bad architecture or whatever, or they don't have affinity for the product and they fail. So I'm really convinced the best teams to invest, and for the success, you need really both, and not only one of them.
Yes, I actually took a course a year ago, a startup in high-tech management, which was a collaboration between the ETH and the University of St. Gallen. And it was an eye-opener to see what it means when you have actually both sides working together.
The dream team is one ETH, one high scale.
When you look at a startup, what's more important to you, team or idea?
Clearly team, clearly. This one is nothing new. I've done already 3-4 startups. Okay, so only one was good success, the last one. And I failed previously several times. It's always the team, always. You don't understand each other anymore. You don't agree about the shares. One is having a burnout, whatever. So you always fail with a team. My experience so far. So for sure, the team.
For sure, the team. Good. Last question for the quick fire Q&A is, I have to give a quick disclaimer before. So who is your role model in the startup world? And you're not allowed to say Elon Musk because he was mentioned too often in my show already. So who will be your role model?
Mr. Eck, Daniel Eck, the CEO and founder of Spotify. And I can tell you why. I was thinking about Jeff Bezos and Jack Ma, whatever. They are really inspiring. But this guy is I mean, again, Sweden is not bigger than Switzerland. Is not really more advanced than Switzerland. And he has started his company in Sweden. So it could be tomorrow in St. Gallen or Zurich. They have 140 million users and they have raised 2.5 billion money. This is just crazy. And from nothing, from Sweden, and not from Berlin or London. So, and this guy is for me a hero. He's done it from Sweden, and he's the proof we can do that also soon in Switzerland.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. So the last part is actually, when I went through the statistics of my followers, I actually realized that I had a lot of investors on the one hand, but because of my network in the student community, I also have a lot of students who watch my show, and that's why I added this special sections where I ask the experts that I usually interview, like if they could give us students some expert advice. So again, the question I have ready for you, a little bit targeted for the event today, is what advice would you have liked to receive as a student about to graduate?
I mean, the biggest advice would be try and go in a startup. Maybe not the one you found, because founding a startup, I've done it several times, is a pain, is difficult. Go first in a startup. I worked 7-8 years in corporates, consulting, classical stuff, very, very interesting. And then after I went to Deal, that may be a very fast-growing startup. And I was an employee. I was not founder, whatever. But I learned so much, so much in the 3 years at Deal. After that, I was able to found companies. So what I would recommend is, of course, if you're ready to found it and go ahead, but rather, do an intern for 6 months, whatever, or go to Berlin, go to work for Zalando or whatever. You will see it's totally different than the consulting and the corporate world. It's much quicker. You need to be very flexible. You work less on slides. You need less. You have less structure. It's lots of chaos. So it's something really different. And my best recommendation is go and work also for a low salary, it doesn't matter, in such a company, and you will see if you like it or not. And if not, it's also something good, then you have to go to another way.
I mean, I started my project while I'm still studying, so sometimes it's not so easy to juggle all of the different things beyond, the studies, my project, family. Any advice you would have, let's say, to people who are considering or already founded their company while studying?
First of all, it's maybe the best decision. Besides studying, I was also myself at the EPFL, the EPFL club, entrepreneur club. It's very. It takes time for sure. It's tricky, but I can only recommend you to get as much practice as possible. Besides studying, because studying is very theoretical. It's really theoretical. If you look at everything you've learned at ASK or myself at EPFL and what I use today, it's not so much, which is okay. It's the theory. It's okay. You have to go through it to have a high level. But go work for some friends, or go ahead, talk to people, go to conferences, and make your own stuff. And again, if you fail, it's not the end of the world. I think especially in Switzerland, we have changed a lot in the last 10 years. 10 years ago, if you would have failed, it would be a kind of a shame, or you will not tell it to everyone, You will keep it secret. Today, it's part of the journey. We are not in Silicon Valley yet. You will not get applause, but it's maybe not so far away anymore. So go ahead, again, fail and do it again.
Okay, a beautiful way to end this, I would say, episode of the Startup Show for the first time live. So I'm excited that you were part of this. Thank you very much, everybody who came. I really appreciate it. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Have a great day.
Thank you guys, and enjoy the day. Good luck.